Good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be here, talk with you about some of the work we've been doing in New Mexico. I've been in New Mexico now for about 17 years. Before that, I had 25 years working in Africa, small-scale agroforestry projects, agricultural projects, research and development with small farmers. It was about time for our children to learn where they were coming from, so we moved to the United States. I'm very glad to be in New Mexico because, in fact, it's very similar to the areas I was working in West Africa and a lot of East Africa. I started working with Poplar about 2002, and I had help from Greenwood Resources and brought their model from Boardman down to New Mexico because we have a very similar environment. And we were looking at the use of poplar originally for windbreaks. And in about 2009, I was approached by a remediation company that does lots of remediation in the Farmington area. And if you don't know, Farmington sits in the San Juan River. The San Juan River Basin is one of the largest natural gas basins in the country. And along with natural gas comes oil. So we have a lot of oil production. And along with natural gas and oil production comes produced water. So some people said that Farmington is the #1 exodus city or metropolitan area in the country right now. And the reason for that is because of the decline in prices for natural gas, oil, and the industry that's associated with it, all the service industries and stuff like this. Now they talk about the whole metropolitan area, and that metropolitan area includes the whole county, San Juan County. Now that county is bigger than the state of Connecticut, so it's a huge area. And the San Juan Basin also goes up into Colorado and into Utah and into Arizona. So we have a lot of work to do in the Four Corners area in remediation of oil and gas activities. I was asked to come and talk about a particular site that we were working with. It's an old abandoned oil refinery, which has to the north an ephemeral wash, and people were concerned about the flux from the contaminated groundwater below that abandoned refinery to the wash and contaminating the wash and further contaminating the San Juan River. So in 2009, we started discussions, and we found out that they would like these shelter belts. Make sure I push the right button, the top one. Shelter belts along, is that a button? No, the next one is along the fence line to protect this wash and also become a biological barrier to further movement of the groundwater. We also found out that the majority of the contamination had a flux going from this eastern side to the west. So we were increasing in our contamination. So we wanted to start with somewhere that was going to be fairly easy. So we started putting in a number of trees and bushes, natural bushes, in this area, and then we planted again in 2011, 2012, and 2013. So now you get a temporal idea of what we were trying to accomplish at this abandoned refinery. This was a major discharge area. That meant they just opened up the tap on the tanks, and the petroleum products would seep into the ground to get rid of it. Maybe it was cleaning out the bottom of the tank. So we had a groundwater water table at about 6 feet, and then floating on top of that groundwater was about a foot of what they call free product. And we have to put in engineering activities with this because all of that free product over the 25 acres of this refinery had to be pumped off. So they have a number of pump wells all over, and then also monitoring wells. So there's continual pumping for years and years, and they can use the oil to fuel the generator.
Very
as
big
they're
crush on
pumping
him.
through.
Every time I even think about him, I blush, which is kind of embarrassing.
I can't say it was love at first sight because I've seen him before that, but like I just felt like when I met him, it was like the connection was finally real, like it was finally happening.
So we had to irrigate this because we only have about 8 inches, 5 inches, 11 inches of annual precipitation. The well was at about 1,500 feet. This is the groundwater contamination. Excuse me, this is the floating groundwater, and it was quite contaminated, high conductivity, total dissolved salts in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams per liter, and goes by. Thank you. So it goes by really fast, the time, that is. And we were pumping from a well that was at about 1,500 feet. It was very saline, and we were continually putting salt on the system, but at least we could get something growing. That first year in 2010, we planted a number of local cottonwoods, a hybrid poplar, four-wing saltbush, the rubber rabbit bush, and giant saccatone. We used that well water, had high pH and brackish water. Sometimes it was a bit more contaminated, up to 4,000 parts per million or milligrams per liter. So we were using 15 to 18-foot poles to get down into that 6-foot water table. And we'd soak them in water for a couple days before we transported them to the site. We got establishment going, and we were starting to put a biological barrier there along that fence line that they were asking for. The second year and the third, subsequent years, we used just OP-367. People here have said how good it is. Well, we can relate positive results with OP-367, and we can see some of the other bushes and shrubs that were doing well in that first site. We had very good establishment in the 2010. But we also had limited survival and a lot of dieback as we moved to more contaminated areas in subsequent years. But on the other hand, there are a lot of successful establishment sites. We're growing around one of those discharge tanks, but these trees are just incredible in where they can grow. So looking at things into the future, and some of the questions that I hope we can generate so I can get some answers is, what do we do with that woody material? How do we dispose it? If it's taking up contaminants, is it a contaminant itself, or is it broken down into byproducts that are harmless? What are some of the other species we may be able to use besides hybrid poplar? Site management, some of the issues that arose in our involvement with the oil and gas companies and the owners of the refinery and the remediation people was who manages that site? How could we get permission to get on the land to be able to take samples? Can we take samples and this sort of thing? Accessibility to labs. What type of labs can we send petroleum products to? Because it's a contaminant and most labs don't even want to touch it. And then I'm always seeking other opportunities for collaboration. And thank you very much to the Advanced Hardwood Biofuels Project for inviting us here. It's a challenge indeed.